Hello everyone and welcome back to Smart Spiritual Solutions. In this channel, we use the Bible to solve everyday problems and improve our overall lifestyle. Today, I want to briefly talk about humility and how humility is one of the most important attributes you can have in your life. So, one problem that is very common in this world is that many people are proud. Like when certain people achieve a high status in life, they start to look down on people who aren't that. Like maybe you're rich and you look down on poor people, or you're famous and you look down on people who are less famous. However, the Bible tells us that being proud is not the best way for a Christian to live. If we read Proverbs chapter 16 verses 18 and 19, it states, "Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Better it is to be of a humble spirit with the lowly, than to divide the spoil with the proud." It was also said in Proverbs chapter 29 verse 23, "A man's pride shall bring him low, but honor shall uphold the humble spirit." Based on these verses, we could see the comparison between humility and pride, and how it is much better to be humble rather than proud. But what does it exactly mean to be humble? Well, to a Christian, humility can mean being humble towards others and towards God. We are humble by submitting ourselves to those above us, such as our parents if we are children, as we can see in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 1 to 3, where we are commanded to do this, or to people who are preaching the truth, as we can see in Hebrews chapter 13 verses 7 and 17. Humility is also about our ability to take care of those who are below us, those who are not at our financial state or mental state or even physical state. You can see Jesus Christ and the way he interacted with lepers and tax collectors and others that society had cast out. He related with them at their level so they could see him as a friend and not an oppressor. This is a huge thing of what humility is all about. However, this does not mean that if we are Christians and we see unbelievers who don't know God, we should start living like them to be humble. Some people will try to tell you that if you're living differently from them or you criticize their wrongdoings, that's because you're proud or because you're cocky. But if they say this, you probably shouldn't listen to them. Because the Bible says that when we are doing what's right before God, there will always be persecution. In 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 12, it says, "And all that will live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution." However, the most important type of humility is humility towards God. We are humble to God simply by living our lives by the rules that are laid out in the scriptures, and not using our human reasoning to question his principles. And an example of this is with Abraham. You can see how Abraham was humble to God's instruction to go to a land that he would show him. Of course, just by looking at this, you can see that he didn't even know what land this was, and he never asked God to fully explain himself before he accepted. He just humbled himself before him, and he did what he was told. But why is it so important to go through all this trouble to be humble? Well, I'll give you a couple reasons of why we should be humble and some of the things that we gain from doing this. So first, one reason I think we should be humble is because if we are humble to God, he will lift us up and exalt us above other people. If we read James chapter 4 verse 10, it says, "Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up." To be lifted up doesn't mean that he's going to rise you up to be 3 feet higher, but it means that you will have an advantage over others in many things due to God's blessing. For example, we could look at Daniel and his 3 friends, who were 10 times better in their Babylonian duties than all the other counterparts because of the same thing. And you can read this in Daniel chapter 1 verse 20. Same thing with Joseph. He was distinguished for his diligence and humility, and with Jesus Christ too, like I mentioned, who was distinguished for his speeches and wisdom. And also the nation of Israel at a time was also like that when they obeyed God until they sort of fell off. However, the most important part of being humble towards God, and the biggest blessing you'll be able to get, is that by being humble, you allow God to teach you things about himself and the future that non-believers will never know, no matter how many scientific experiments they do, or surveys they conduct, or books they read and write, or other things like this. The Bible tells us, "The secret of the Lord is with them that fear him, and he will shew them his covenant." And lastly, It is important to be humble because it is only with humility that we can go anywhere with God. The Bible tells us that God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble, if we read Psalm chapter 138 verse 6. And this is because God isn't the kind of person who will just sit down and watch you tell him what to do. But instead, we can only go far if we accept his guidance so our relationship can go smooth. And if we do this, it will last a long time. That's how Jesus Christ became so favored in God's eyes and is now very prominent, to the point that we are told to worship him in Philippians chapter 2 verses 9 to 11. But anyway, I think that will suffice for discussing the importance of humility. If you enjoyed this video or learned something from this, I would greatly appreciate if you were to hit the subscribe button on our channel, or also to click the notification bell so you know the next time that we post again. Have a good day, and we'll see you in the next video.